Hello, I'm Murray Carter, and I want to take a moment to talk to you a little bit about the different styles of neck knives that I make. First, let's talk about this neck knife here. This is the neck knife model that we call the original model. This is the neck knife that started all of the neck knives. And it's a no-frills design, very simple drop point hunter style blade shape with a handle that, even though it's quite short and small, isn't claustrophobic when you hold it. You put your index finger in that little groove there and you can hold the blade just like this. Very simple design. The combination of that little finger groove and the handle design allows you a very secure and positive grip both forward and backwards, and it's a very safe design. Even if your hand gets wet, sweaty, or greasy or otherwise, it's still a very good firm purchase on the blade. We put all sorts of different handle materials, both man-made and natural, on these knives, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So this is the original model. It's the blade that started them all. Another popular model are our Wharncliffe style series of blades. And what primary difference between the Wharncliffe and the original model is where the tip of the knife lies. If I'm going to use an original model for, say, let's say for example, cutting a magazine article out of a magazine, I have to raise the knife up considerably in order to get to the tip, to use that tip of the blade. But you'll see with the Wharncliffe series, I don't have to lift my wrist up so high or naturally in order to be able to use the tip work. The Wharncliffe series knives, we've got original Wharncliffe, we've got a pointy Wharncliffe, we've got, this is the Wharncliffe Brute. Fairly easy to sharpen. And again, an advantage of being able to use that tip at a lower angle. Just not as conventional looking as the original model or any model that has that kind of a drop point blade on it. This is a model we call the tactical model. You'll see a few things. It's a little longer than the other two blades I showed you, and it has a little bit more detail in the handle. A handle that's kind of looks like it's directing your fingers to hold it in a certain way. Now it looks like it's going to be a more secure grip. That's the way the handle is kind of designed to look. Actually in function, not much different in terms of practical grip surface as any of these tier shape handles that we predominantly use on most of our neck knives. So it's just a stylish thing, the way we've designed those knives, the lines on the handle. This is a model that we've perfected recently, and hence we've called it the perfect model. It really is nothing more than the original model knife, but a little wider in the handle, a little wider in the blade. The day one of these came out of our shop and I put it in my hand, I just said, wow, that neck knife is absolutely perfect. Perfect for me anyway. And so we've dubbed this the perfect model neck knife. Now, a word on neck knives is that larger isn't necessarily always going to be better. Neck knives is definitely an area where we could say small is beautiful. I've noticed in the past when I've tried to wear long neck knives and the neck knife has been underneath my shirt, sometimes when I was pulling it out from my shirt, that extra length of handle kind of got caught up and couldn't make it over the lip of my shirt. So you want to be sensitive to the fact that you can go overboard in getting a neck knife that's a little bit too large. Now, if you were 6'5", then obviously you could use a neck knife that was a little larger than the one I use, standing at 5'9". Speaking of small is beautiful, we do make some of the smaller neck knives, and these are just handy if you're looking just for just a little bit of a blade that's lighter and more convenient to carry around, or for anyone of a smaller stature. We do have the smaller neck knives, and even when they get as small as this, the interesting thing is that there's still a functional blade. Even if you can only get 2 or maybe 2.5 fingers on that handle, this is still a functional blade. It's heat treated, it's got enough thickness in there to be strong, but you can do a lot of cutting chores even with a smaller blade like this. This model here we call a little thumb dagger, and it's not entirely practical for using as a using blade. For one thing, you couldn't hold it like this like you might with some of these other knives, you know, by putting your index finger on the back of the blade. Obviously that's a sharpened edge. But it is kind of a last-ditch, maybe a self-defense style blade, where some blade would be better than no blade. So we call this a thumb dagger. Very light in weight, very thin, and it's a cute little functional sharp knife. So those are our neck knives. Myself personally, I carry the original perfect model neck knife. The big difference being is I've sharpened the edge and the secondary edge so many times now that it's about 10% smaller in the blade dimensions than what it started out with. But that there is the first perfect model knife that I've been using, and I wouldn't want it any bigger. It's right out there on the very fringes of what I would consider to be a comfortable size for daily use, you know, from morning till night. It's been a great companion though. My neck knives come with 5 different surface options. One option is the hammer forged finish that's left unpolished. It looks like this. You can see there's little dimples or depressions in the blade, and the surface looks kind of like a little brownish, blackish from the heat treating procedure. We've left it just as it is and have just ground and polished the secondary edge. A nice contrast. Another option is we take the same hammer forged surface and then we polish just the top part of the surface, which gives you a contrast of kind of the brownish, blackish, depressed areas and the polished surface. There's 2 different options. Another 2 options are forged surface, where there's evidence in the surface that the blade has been forged, you know, slight undulations from the hammer, but then it was left unpolished. Again, the nice contrast between the original blade thickness and the secondary edge. A 4th option is the same surface, the same forged surface that's polished. And then you can see, you can actually really see where the hammer blows were, but it looks, you know, silver on top, silver on the secondary edge. And then the last or 5th option we have is the ground and polished, you know, with like a conventional knife. All the surfaces have been ground, and then all of the surfaces were polished. As far as handle materials go, you have basically 2 subcategories of handle materials. You have natural handle materials and you have man-made handle materials. In the natural handle materials, you have the different bones, stags, different types of wood, ivories, and some kind of seashells. On the man-made side, you have materials such as micarta, G10, and Corian, DuPont, plastic handle, and carbon fiber. So you have many options with neck knives. You can see from our available selection one that appeals to you, and you can also see some combinations that we've sold in the past by visiting our knife archives.